Okay, should be that. A bit longer than expected. Okay, so everything up. It's hard getting all this lined up. Okay, so today, um, what are we going to do? That doesn't need to be open right this second. Pretty much okay with that, but liquid sky. Okay, so stories. So for right now, I'm going to use JetBrains Space because, why not stay within JetBrains? And I'm going to track these as tickets, as support items, or whatever issues they're tracked as. And I started writing some stuff out and realized that it's been a while since I actually had to plot a product out. Um, this works best as a collaborative exercise, especially if you're working with, obviously, when you're working with multiple developers and multiple people, this is done by different roles. So doing it on your own is a little harder because you have to kind of put on each hat as you go through. Actually, let me make sure, double check that, yep, audio looks right. Doesn't reset yet. Okay. So I need to kind of think through um, these items as such, right? And decide the order in which I'm going to do them. So yesterday I was saying, hey, I'm going to go forward and create a ticket. Right? I've kind of got the API there. It might need a little bit more work, but let's actually put the stories in there to track these things. Um, so I started plotting this out. Right, what do I want to do? Right. So the initial goal will be to allow me to record a ticket, and then with that ticket, I should be able to do what, right? My entire goal of this platform is, this has a due date on it, which is not dissimilar to what I want to do. I just want to tie responsibility and visibility to this piece, right? I don't want to just highlight it red or whatever. I want to actually make sure that people are alerted. So my end goal here very much revolves around that visibility. Morning, Copper Beardy. How are you? How's things? Or just afternoon, Copper Beardy as well. um, so if I go through and just randomly jam stuff into this system, I'm just going to be doing the very thing I didn't want to do, which is to just keep developing in a flurry of, oh, now that doesn't work. Now, okay, now I need to do this. I need to do this, and I want to try and avoid that where possible. Right? I do want to prototype out ahead. I do want to make sure that I'm constantly um, correcting myself. Doing good. Just finished making chocolate marshmallow fudge. That sounds delightful. That sounds really good. Um, yeah. So I've not practiced any of the event sourcing skills yet, or not event sourcing, event storming stuff yet. But it's kind of what I need to do, right? I need to think through what are the initial steps, what are the impacts, right? Because the reason I'm sharing this is because, and I didn't want to do story planning on the stream for the purpose of, the coding is way more interesting. But the reason I'm sharing it is because I quickly hit an issue, right? And it's an issue that if stories are being fed to you piecemeal, let me make sure that microphone's in the right place. If stories are being fed to you piecemeal, then you're not going to necessarily see the impact of any given story. So I started with a top level item, right? Unresolved. As a product owner, I want to be able to track. I want to track support tickets, right? That's the overall goal. I want to be able to have a system that can enter support tickets into. So what does that mean? Well, initially, I want to be able to. I should be able to enter a support ticket, right? I should be able to capture a ticket to record a support issue. The issue will have a customer name, a description of the issue, and an expected review date, right? That's kind of again building on that premise that I'm trying to build towards. So then, okay, what else would I need to do? Well, I need to see the list of tickets, right? This is because this becomes, I don't know, yeah, create issue. Create issue, there you go. So as a product owner, I want to retrieve a list of support tickets. Great. So what else might I want to do there? Well, I want to be able to assign a ticket to another user. Oh, okay. Oh, I haven't got the ability to add different users into the system yet. So how do I do that? Well, now I've got to divert, right? I need to be able to add users. So this has a dependency upon another piece of work being completed. Right? So it's worth keep going through these processes and identifying, where, you know, it, this process is difficult as is, and you're going to miss things, right? But the more you can identify ahead of time, the more you can order your thoughts, the order your practices. And I'm not perfect at this piece, right? I'm not perfect at the product planning piece. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert here, right? By the end of this product, I might be a little better at it, but this is a difficult piece, and it's a difficult piece to do on a personal project, right? If I treat this like it is a hobby project that if it happens to become something it should do, then I could just try and rush out a product. I could just try and jam everything in. Oh, now I need this. Let's go over there, do this. Let's go over there, do this. And try and just ram that code in as quickly as I possibly can to get something out there. But that's kind of what I'm trying to avoid. It's kind of what I'm promoting against, I suppose. So doing it that way would be disingenuous. And for the purpose of the stream, right? That's why I'm streaming this, right? I want to stream the the successes as well as the failures, right? I want to stream. Here's what it is to try and develop a product. Here's my process. Maybe people can learn from that process. Maybe people can pass opinions on that process and give me advice and share advice with others, right? So that's why I'm streaming the process. But I immediately have a dependency upon something else. So I'm gonna let the I'm gonna let it flow a little bit, right? I'm going to create a new issue, and this is as a product owner, I want to be able to register an employee. Is it an employee? Think about that word. What does a user mean to right? What does a user mean? I'm not going to get into personas and trying to pretend I know who is doing these things. Right. In my experience, I've had a wide range of young people to older people to people who have never done this, trying to do this stuff. So creating a persona for someone who is a product manager is, or even a product owner, right? That's whoever's that might not even be a business owner. That might be a manager within a team, right? So the product owner is the person who. So that's a good point. So product owner is person who registers the software, the account. We don't know who that is. Likely a SD manager, CTO level sort of person, right? So now we get into the terminology, and this is important to understand from the beginning, right? What am I going to call? Am I going to call them a user? What is a user? A user is a user of the system is the most common and easiest to jump to assumption. Um, am I registering an employee? Well, employee has no concept in this system because they're just people who use the software, right? So again, we're using the word user. It's natural, right? So I want to be able to register a user is probably um, now we get into another challenge, right? So I have the concept of tenancy. You can have multiple tenants. You can register multiple tenants. I do not have the concept of selecting a tenant, right? So we have yet another need, right? As a product owner, I want to be able to register a user in my current tenant. So I have to start specifying what tenant I mean, right? If I if I'm going to affect all tenants that I am a product owner of, then maybe I need to specify that, right? So um, um, I want to keep making sure I'm very clear about what I'm trying to do because as I build these stories out, right, I'm going to end up with a lot of stories in here that are needing work and I need to assign a priority, etc. to them, right? And if I'm vague on anything, I don't want to spend time trying to figure out what I meant when I wrote it because it could be weeks, months before I get around to a ticket. So let's create another issue. So in here, add a sub item as a product owner. I should be able to register a user with an email um, and a temporary password. I should be able to register a user and right. There's a reason I'm trying to create top level items to kind of represent epic level things and sub items. So yes, this is um, this is kind of the specificity there. So let's add another one as a user. I should receive an email to confirm my account. Right. As a user, I should be able to log in and now what? Right. So now I have some dependencies again, right? What do I see? Um, so I got taught when writing stories that you should try and make sure that every story has business value. But the reality of it is, as you're writing stories, they don't all have direct business value, right? Testing these things is tough. Um, and especially now, right? I'm early on, right? So testing and stuff is going to just be rinse and repeat, cleaning the system out, adding the system back in, doing all those sorts of things. But it's not going to be formal in any way for a while. Sorry, I've got a very itchy nose today, which is why I keep touching my face. I apologise. I just realised I'm touching it way more. I want to. So, what does logging in mean when I'm a user? When there's no screens to see, there's no again, and I'm focusing on API here. I'm not focusing on visuals for a while. So, um, what's as a user should be able to log in, right? Um, using temporary um, um, app screen. So what I did is I created this placeholder, this front end, this placeholder app front end, and this is in a throwaway folder. And this is just an application that will start up and allow me to log in using the credentials. So I can use that. I can add a bit more information into that to prove which tenant, right? So create issue, create issue, create issue. I go into here. As a user, I should be able to navigate to the temporary app screen. I should be able. Good morning, Doctor. How are you? Let's do it this way. Navigate to the temporary app screen. Log in using credentials provided. I should be prompted to change my password. Good. I need to make sure that I always select. So on YouTube, it defaults to top chat, and I don't know what that means necessarily. What you doing? So last night I sat down to try and plan some stories out to try and get ready for today's stream, and I realized quickly that I had some dependencies going on, right? And I figured it would be more useful to share than it would be to try and do it behind the scenes and get it done, and then kind of share my thought process and do it all that way rather than just trying to move through and try and write software. So, okay, I should be prompted to change my password. Yeah, essentially tasks. It's kind of acceptance criteria, right? What does it mean to log in? I should be prompted to change my password, and when logged in, I should see a tenant ID on the screen. No, it couldn't. Well, okay, each one could be its own component of this of software, but that story isn't complete until all those things are done. So those are tasks of a single story. I'm not planning out the software dev here. I'm planning out the visual aspects of it. I'm not sure I agree with the requirements on a story. How so? Nope. I think they go on the software itself. In what way? I'm not quite sure I follow. So your software has requirements. You build stories to meet those requirements. Right. Or epics, if that's what. So what I'm using here, because I'm using JetBrains space, right? Let me save that. Go here. I'm kind of using an item to represent an epic, right? So actually, what I want to do is here. I want to tag this as user registration, say, and I want to go back to here, and each one of these is user registration, right? So think of these as I'm just kind of cheating the system a bit because it's not a full-fledged software, right? If anyone's watching that is interested in this, an ad break will start in about 3 minutes on the half hour. Let me know, and I will wait until out of add before proceeding. So this is a bigger epic, essentially. I'm not trying to get into using Jira or any other software. There you go. Also, what is the main differentiator of your software? My main differentiator will be my ability to notify people and provide visibility into where things lie, which other software does not do a very good job of, from my experience. Yeah. So even this software, right? This software has the concept of a due date, right? And it does have the concept of like alerting me to out of schedule, right? But it's not actively doing that. It's not allowing me to see work that spans a team or work that has dependencies on other groups. That's where I'm aiming to do, right? I'm aiming to make this about visibility over everything. Parallelizing work is greater than scheduling. Well, the ability to understand what work is being parallelized is often what jumps into scheduling, right? So scheduling is often impacted by our inability to understand knock-on effects of individual work. So my goal is to kind of visualize where things really stand, not where we think they stand. Because a lot of sprints and stuff, a lot of work is done that is not tracked or is not visible because there's no, oh well, this impacts this and this impacts this. This story is being worked on, but it has a DevOps component or it has whatever component, and they're not available for it. So this story is going to be impacted. How do we do that, right? That needs coordination. So that's why I'm trying to do what I'm doing. My team right now coordinated 3 separate large scale tasks. Okay. Basically, group 1 working on the UI, group 2 working on the API, group 3 on the database. Yep. Yeah. Understood. So those aren't the divisions, but essentially what we did. I've got to remember to read the messages. So it always feels odd read the message. So yeah, an ad break's about to start in less than a minute. So if anyone is paying attention to this and you want me to wait, let me know. Obviously on YouTube, that's not. Yeah, is that hard to do, or as a manager, is it pretty easy? That is pretty hard because you are presented with, okay, 3 different groups are working on pieces, right? How do you coordinate? Right. So the UI component has, you know, I need to be able to see a list of things, right? But that UI component relies upon the API component to be done, and that API component requires upon database work, right? So if critical work comes in on the database side before that story is done for the database, then the API team's impacted, right? So my goal is to set kind of expectations on as review dates rather than a due date, which is what this is tagged as, right? What I'd be doing is specifying review dates, and those review dates would trigger notifications. Similarly, in my vision of this, those 3 tasks would be potentially on different boards, right? Because there would be different teams doing them potentially. Let's say they are. The story for I need to be able to a um, see a list, right? It's the same story in the API, the database, and the UI. At its essence, it is the same story, right? I haven't figured out I'm still trying to figure through some of the use cases. I'm still trying to make sure I'm testing mentally the model, right? But in my goal, my intention is that those items would exist on each other's board, but you'd be able to see the overall progress of any of those coordinated items, right? So you'd be able to say, oh, this is actually truly in progress, um, and it's actually currently sat on this team, right? Because that task, that list of users on a screen or something, it's kind of passing the ball, right? And that's kind of how I termed this initially, right? It was pass the ball, right? Because the DB team has to do their part. They then pass the ball to the UI to the API team, who then is able to build their components, and then they can pass it to the UI team. It's the same piece of work overall. How we started to do that is have a meeting and divide up stuff logically, sprint planning meeting, and then just an ad hoc one, right? But what often happens is you're asked, where's the DB team on this? Right? Especially where I've been, right? I'm asked, where is this other team on this? Because that manager, if those are three separate teams, that manager's tracking your work, not the DB team, right? So you're responsible for chasing up. Whereas if more visibility is present, if we know the database team has this work, but it's sat in ready to be done and not in progress, why isn't it sat in? Why isn't there's a review date on it of tomorrow, and it's not moved yet, right? When it hits tomorrow, it will trigger an alert and tell everybody involved, hey, by the way, this DB team work is not there, right? It's not about shame, it's about visibility. So my goal is to try and improve that process by saying you don't need to go chasing people to do their jobs. Their jobs are their jobs. You are not responsible for scheduling another person's work. Their manager is, and they should be alerted to the fact that the work's it's necessary. So you can be able to set priorities, etc. I just need them to put out PR, and I can check it once a day. Right, but you shouldn't have to check it, is the point, right? If they say the work's done, you should be alerted to the fact they've said the work's done, and it's now good for you to go. If they've moved it back to ready for review or whatever columns you have out of in progress, you should be notified, right? But that progress should be visible to you, right? Whether it be notifications on your screen, whether it be email alerts, however you want to be notified, you should be able to see the progress of any single piece of work. And again, that piece of work is the same piece of work in the database, in the AI, in the API, in the UI, right? It's the same component, right? They have a dependency. So in that scenario, it's kind of literally passing the ball. So that's kind of where I want to head. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe when I get down to it and I write all this software, we find that it really is an unfeasible process, and maybe across the journey we have someone come in who's really good expert on this and says, no, that doesn't work because, and we have that, oh yeah, moment, right? Like say something changes on the UI and that changes the DB. Okay. I need to alert the DB they just made a bad table, right? I mean, I'm not saying you can't correspond with them, but then it's basically you say, hey, this work needs to come back to you, and you pass the ball, right? That ticket, that work item goes back to the DB group, and the visibility is there. Everybody involved will be notified. It's been retransferred to a different team or whatever, and you've got to track it, right? So we know where it is. That's if we don't, but any changes to it, any progress to it would be notified to the group that's tracking it. So if you've got collaborative work, you would have anyone who's collaborating would be notified. And again, I've not even got to the point of entering a ticket properly into the system. So I'm still working out how do I actually want that to work. So whether it be digest, whether it be whatever, but again, it's about making an increased visibility and taking the load off an individual developer to say, hey, where's this ticket, by the way? Because if you don't know where the API team are, and let's say you're working on the UI, and you don't know where the API team are, you certainly don't know where the database team are with it. So you shouldn't spend any of your time checking in on their work, right? You shouldn't be asked by your manager, "Oh, where are we with this?" I got busy yesterday, and if you've done this more than a little bit, you've probably said this. "Oh, I got really busy yesterday with this task. I forgot to check. Let me follow up." And now you've got to spend the next 10 or 15 minutes chasing up other teams, right? I just want to cut that out. Where are you with this is probably the wrong. Well, what it is, it starts with where are you with this, right? Because it's in your board, it's your little world. Is often the case. But you then pass that question on, right? Because and instinctively, if it's not something you can control, it's a blame game, right? And then they get their manager asking them where they are with it, right? So then they're angry at you or upset with you because now you're like, oh, this team is just not letting go with this story. I will get to it as soon as I can get to it, right? You don't know what other stresses or whatever is on them to get other work done, right? So again, it's about visibility and transparency, and that's where I think we fail often, and we love to blame. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what I'm trying to promote, right? I don't want you having to chase that team. I do not want you having to do any work extra beyond the work you're assigned. And when that is ready for you to pick up, right, you can review it, right? If it goes into it in review, you'll be notified it's gone to in review. So you can now go and review that PR, right? Because it's work that will eventually come back to you. The ball will be passed to you to do your piece of it, right? And the same process continues. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do. That's that's the workflow that I'm trying to do. I've got to build from some very small groundwork here and build towards that. What I'm trying to do is kind of show thinking about this the way I currently think about this, tackling this the way I currently tackle this, right? Um, what's the impact of doing it the way I'm doing it, right? So the way I was going to plan this. Coordinating pairs seems like a pain though if we only could work together in some kind of an ensemble or mod. But that doesn't always work that way, right? And it's not always practical. It might work for your group, but it might not work for other groups. So yes, if you can work together and ideally you sit down, you work on the database, you work on the API, and you work on the UI, and you can kind of collaborate on that code. But it doesn't always work, and it's not always the best. And if you have people who aren't the greatest communicators or are happier going off and coding on their own, but they're more productive that way, right? So you've got to make sure that the system supports whatever you're doing, and this would still do that, right? If you were doing that all as part of one team, the visibility is still there, right? There's just fewer notifications. So yeah, it's this isn't an easy problem, and it's not. It might not solve anything. It might just make me develop a whole lot of software that I look back on and think, okay, there's the mistakes I made. There's so much overhead that ensembling gets rid of. No more stand up. So it's basically 2.5 hours a week. 2.5 hours in stand ups? No. The definition of a stand up is merely like the reason you stand up is so that you don't stand around having a meeting. If you're spending 30 minutes a day, yeah, it should be 15 minutes. A stand up should be 15 minutes. I mean, yeah, that's still an hour and a bit, but hour and a quarter. But that's all. The stand up should be the 10 minutes. The parking lot is extra. That's not stand up. That's extra pieces. So your stand up is reasonable. Your parking lot is unreasonable every day. That's what you need to get rid of. No, we went through this, didn't we? We went through the parking lot concept. The parking lot is assigned for, hey, let's get together after and talk about this. Right. That's what the parking lot's for. Oh no. I wiped out my cluster again. Why didn't that data persist? Dang it. I don't need to worry about that right this second. So I did go through some stuff yesterday with the Saga piece, and I did learn a bit more about SQL Server. So I did get that done, but I don't need that for today. So anyway, let me kind of, so your original problem with what I was doing was kind of the way I was laying out. Okay, let me review. So I started down, I need to enter a support ticket, right? So then I got to some of the additional stories. Yeah. Now I consider these stories because they are kind of, each story should add business value is the goal that I was always taught. It's not always practical, but it is a good kind of measure to start with. So I got to, I want to retrieve a list of support tickets. I want to be able to assign a ticket to another user. Oh, I don't have the concept of another user yet. Okay, so now I have another dependency. So let's go off and create the user registration thing. And this is kind of what event sourcing is built. Event storming, not event sourcing. Event storming is intended to kind of do. But I've never done event storming, so nope. No, you should not. The dev should not be figuring out the requirements. Nope. The dev should not figure out the requirements. The dev should figure out the technical pieces. The dev should not figure out the requirements. And that's going to get very confusing as I am the dev here. So the tester needs to know what to test, e.g. requirements for the story. Oh, I see. Difference in definition of requirements. Yes. Okay. As a product owner, I want to be able to register a user, right? This is my epic, essentially. This is how I'm going to model the epics for now. I'm going to create one group story and then do this. So as a product owner, I should be able to register a user in my current tenant. And I'll go back to the one that started it. And then I should, as a user, I should receive an email to confirm my account, right? So that's making sure that it wires up no, that's actually not required. That one is not actually required because this kind of groups it together. This is a single sentence test, which is interesting. Okay, so as a product owner, I want to be able to register a user. As a product owner, I should be able to register a user in my current tenant. So that is for right now. I should be able to add an email and password part is password part's hard because I'm having to build this in the API perspective before I build this in a UI perspective. So this part is going to change over time. Password. Let me go there. When you're writing a story, as a PM writing a story, right, you have expectations of what you want to see. So those expectations should be captured because that's what the requirements of the story really are. The planning meetings, the grooming meetings, etc., should be looking at those requirements, your requirements as a PM, analyzing them and saying what's possible, what's not possible, why not this, challenging those expectations of what should be done. Your expectations aren't in terms of technical implementation, right? Here's what I want to see. Here's how I want it to behave. This is the expectation of what the PM should see because the PM doesn't look at the code, right? My job as a developer is to take these requirements, these expectations, and implement them, right? Or challenge them. And that's why it is important to groom early on a story to make sure you are at least given the time to review Does the code even allow us to do that? When you see a requirement, does the UI framework even allow us to do that? Does this, you know, your expectations are in terms of technical implementations, it's in behavior of the software, and people get those confused very often. Like you could use AI to challenge something like that. Mm-hmm. Yes, we are going to tinker with AI along the way here, especially in story writing. Not the stories I'm going to create, but adding the ability for AI to interact with a PM writing a story. We're going to see what that can do. Can it create a chatbot for story planning? So yeah, so this is kind of what I want to see. So as a user, I should be able to log in using a temporary app screen. So again, all this is kind of built upon the temporary components. I do not want to put a UI in front. I want to validate the AI, the AI, the API works. So here, I should be able to navigate to the temporary screen. I should log in using the credentials provided. I should be prompted to change my password. That's an important fact. I think it's possible in the Auth0 API. When logged in, I should see my tenant ID on screen. That's all I can do right now. You add a button, are those too technical requirements? And you give the AI prompt with, are those requirements too technical and not behavior focused? Yeah. I mean, I've worked with both. Most PMs I've worked with, and I'll be honest, I've worked with a few. They kind of like to get what they want for the least amount of effort. So if they can tell you what to do, or they've heard you, and it's dangerous because PM's over here to technical discussion, right? When we're talking about this, let's say we're in grooming, and I'm saying, oh well, that API doesn't exist. We need to add this API. We could do it this way, and it would save us some time, right? You say all these sorts of things, and then the PMs pick up on that. So the next time they do a story, they think, oh well, they already did that piece. Oh, it's just using this piece again. And the technical requirement the technical requirement will appear there. Yeah, use this API endpoint. What? That's not for you to tell us. That's for you to expect us to understand that we need to do that, right? You have to trust in our professionalism as much as we trust in your professionalism, right? So it's a balance, and it's not their fault. They're trying to make sure that process is as smooth as possible and as clear as possible. So if they can try and help you along the way, they will do. Sometimes it's because it's their benefit, and they can save time on writing some lengthy requirements, right? But yeah, this is the way I'm going to develop these stories for now. Along the way, maybe I'll learn a different way. Once I start, dog fooding the software, maybe I learn a completely different way. So should people dip into other people's roles? No, no. A good collaborative team is going to be able to do the things they are good at, right? PM should be able to be a PM, right? A developer should be able to be a developer, and that's why I'm saying this is important. These requirements do not come from the developer. You should not be taking a sentence. You should not be taking a sentence and you building the actual requirements out as a developer, because that's never going to work properly. Well, okay, it can work, but it's a lot more work on you that shouldn't be there. I guess you argue the interface usually. Yeah. So, and again, the entire process here, the entire design of the software is built to try and smooth this process through, right? It's trying to increase visibility. One of the concepts I want to introduce is not a story, not a ticket, right? There's an in between, there's a piece being planned, right? That is promoted to become a story. So we can see the difference. If I continue to build this, right, just off what I know now, this is going to be hundreds of items. That is a backlog of work. What stops me from letting it go stale, right? So that's what this is meant to do, right? But I don't know this. This is not a due date. What I want to introduce is a concept of a review date, right? And it will default. It will not offer unscheduled, right? It will default. And then this backlog will automatically be sorted in date of review. So it will sort the items that need to be reviewed up to the top automatically. I think if the work is way in the future, there is no reason to break it up. Right, the further out you get, the more obscure you can be. or the less specific you can be, right? You can get away with general requirements at a distance, right? Because again, I don't know what I need in the future, right? I'm going to build upon this and see what happens. Yeah, abstract. There we go. I should know that word, right? Yeah, story writing AI integration. I've already got it there. That's what I want to do. Build authentication is fine if you're punting that piece. Right. Yeah, agreed. But this backlog could still grow to hundreds of items right now, right? I don't want it to do. I don't want it to build that way. I want to create the minimum amount of tickets to track actual needed pieces right now. And then I want to be able to um, um, start using my own software as soon as possible. Pinky Singh. Apologies, I do not understand. Unfortunately, I do not speak anything but English. Hope you're having a good day. Yeah, so I want to make sure that I am trying to build this as cleanly as I can, build this as accurately as I can, because I want to actually use this to work off of and make sure we're checking down the work, right? But also, I don't want to go too far ahead in the future. So, again, right, each one of these kind of has a knock-on effect, and that's why this is an important piece, right? So, as a user, I should be able to log in using temporary app screen, right? How I design. This does not let me drag. This just orders it in terms of tickets, whatever. So this started because I wanted to enter a ticket for a support issue, right? That's the issue will have a customer name, a description of the issue, and an expected review date, right? I then want to be able to assign work to someone. Oh, well, I can't assign because I can't register another user. So now this is blocked by the other piece, right? Huge backlogs are for sure an anti-pattern unless there's a bunch of good ideas or something. Well, the problem with huge backlogs is that review part, right? The story gets put in there. And okay, that's where I was going. My apologies. I went kind of round on a tangent. Yes, I know those conflict. The backlog gets bigger, but they're all stories. So everything's work to be done. As far as anybody else looking at it is concerned, that is work to be done. So what I want to do is say, okay, let's say we go through the entire process. A customer reports an issue and it becomes a ticket. I want to say, okay, that is actually a ticket, but there's an actual underlying behavioral problem with it, right? So it isn't actually a support ticket that maybe it can address something. Maybe there's a bug fix there. But that then becomes promoted to an interim stage, which is kind of like a draft story as such, right? And that information about the ticket is not lost because the ticket has evolved into this draft, right? The fact that the ticket was completed is still recorded. Okay, there's metrics because we all know that everyone needs metrics, right? There's still a ticket was completed and it was promoted is an extra metric, right? So we know the amount of work that comes in that is ticketed and completed. We know the amount of work that is ticketed and promoted to actual work that needs to be done. So we can know where the information is coming from. So we know that drafts are being created independently of tickets, and we know that drafts and stories are being created independently of drafts, right? So you can measure where the work is actually coming from at any one point. When it's a draft, all the ticket information is attached to it. There is no loss of lineage, right? You don't have to copy images, you don't have to copy conversations. The idea will be that all that information comes with it. Any notes, any images, anything that happened, right? Any PRs, they'd also be linked. You then have a planning phase, and that is what is planned. So the backlog is built up of drafts primarily, and then stories. And stories would always come higher in review, right? Because the stories need to be reviewed for validity, etc. So they constantly moving. The drafts might take a longer review period, right? But using the draft review period, you could actually plan um, grooming sessions without the PM. And then once a draft is ready and it's been approved, then the PM can promote it to an actual story that is ready to be scheduled and everything like that. That is kind of my goal here. And again, once it's gone from a draft, it could have comments on it. It could have all sorts of other stuff added to it as a draft. Once it becomes a story, none of that's lost again. That's my goal. The business person can probably come up with more ideas to make better software than the devs can implement in a given piece of time. Ideas are cheap, basically. Comparative metrics would be helpful, I think. If the company knew it's in the bottom 20th of Agile, that's a huge motivator. Yes. And, I could use this to measure how companies are using the software, right? I could promote that information. Yeah. Right. 50% of your issues come from support in your customers. So or 50% of your drafts come from actual support tickets. So you've probably got a software process you need to tighten up, because you should not receive that many tickets that become actual support tickets reported that actually become work that needs to be done. And yeah, that's kind of where I want to go. Yeah. So metrics, like you said yesterday, open telemetry is definitely something I will be putting in here. Metrics is something we'll be analyzing as I go, and I will share as much of that as I can. At one point, there will be pieces where I do not want to share on stream, because I do want this to be a product. But again, um, yeah. But targeting people like numbers, right? People do love numbers because people use numbers to measure themselves off of, and they do use themselves to improve, whether we like it or not. So, yeah. So let's get to see if we can actually do some software today. So what I've identified here is I have a dependency, right? I cannot really proceed with this ticket until I tackle this ticket, right? I won't know anyway. Look, thank you very much, Dota. Appreciate the conversation as always. This is always one of my favorite times, to be honest, because it is always good to have what you're doing challenged from a different perspective. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a great work day. Have a great day. Okay, so hi Amal, how you doing? Good morning. Okay, doing great. Good to hear it. That's awesome. Well, I don't know how much of the conversation you've heard so far. I don't know if you've just joined, or you've been here for a while. Um, but if there's any questions about what I'm doing for anyone in the chat, um, please feel free. I'm open to discussing this further. Um, but let me kind of summarize what I'm about to do. Right. So I have started to add tickets, items, issues as this software is, and I have some dependencies. Right. I can't really proceed to assign a ticket to a user until I can register a user. Because I am single threaded here, I have to do these things in the right sort of order. Right. But it doesn't mean I can't start the ticket piece. And I kind of have some of the groundwork in there already. So that's probably the most logical place to start. Can I do these two things properly? Right. So let's start here. And I just identified, obviously, I wiped out my systems yesterday. It shouldn't have actually. Okay, Twitch is not good with ads, because I swear it ran one not too long ago. But anyway, while that happens, I'm gonna get this database up and running again. So localhost 8091. I thought I'd set this up to not um, liquid sky local ls administrator autofill ls developer. No, that's not what I want. Autofill localhost 8091. Oh, maybe it is ls developer. That's that password. No, you're not having my information. 32 gig per service node. Yeah. Save and finish. Okay. You have no buckets. I have no users. Oh no. Okay. Liquid Sky. So I don't know if anyone saw yesterday. JetBrains released their own AI, and yeah, it was a bit of a wet noodle from my perspective. Hi, Deflux. I'm not reading that out for the purpose of the VOD. How's it going? Hopefully your day's starting well. Is this actually... No, it doesn't identify those. It's starting. Huh? Okay, so first things first, we are going to do a few things. We're going to merge some branches down. So we have one... Oh, really? That's still that? One branch. Where's Liquid Sky? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge down. I don't know why the tooling still makes that, but let's figure that out. Your branches, edit, main. Okay, we're gonna merge everything down into main. And we are going to all zero confirmation. Did I push everything is the question. Oh yeah, they needed awaits. Okay. Add awaits to Saga handlers. Commit and push. I'm going to merge everything down so that I have a good starting point. Right at this point, this is my software. I'm not going to start plucking this out and rebuilding that. And the reality is that it's not far away from where I'd want it to be. So I'm not panicked about having to do that. I've got to recreate these databases anyway. In doing some testing yesterday, I wiped out everything. So this project is not far away from where I want it to be. So let's go and do that. So this is a scary part now. Okay. Everything's pushed. If nothing's pushed, if everything's not pushed, I'm about to be in trouble. So all zero confirmation paths should have all the other branches. So doing this should collapse everything into one, right? Work so far. Contains all prototyping work, all Saga work, etc. Create a pull request. Yeah, it's pretty much everything. Okay, I am going to squash and merge. I do not want all that history dangling out there, right? I want to squash it. Combine into one commit in the base branch. Do I want to rebase? everything so far. So this stops noisy history, right? If I merge a branch in, all the commits in that branch are squashed into one commit in the main, so that there's one commit representing that change set. If I don't squash it and I merge it in, I can still jump back to any point in that history, which is something you should never really have to do. I can still check out from a point in that code even later. So rebase will take anything in main and kind of intermingle it, whereas merge is going to just drop everything onto it, is my understanding. So rebase will actually take my changes, make all the changes back and kind of weave it in. I'm just going to merge it because I do want the history still. Delete the branch. So that should have deleted the other branches as well. It didn't. Okay, so let's go here. Let's see if these have any changes on them that are not in. So nothing to compare. Nothing to compare. Nothing to, okay. They're all yeah, wasted branch. I could have done that. How to use the tools. So let's delete these, delete these, delete these, right? So we have one main branch. Been working on this for over 2 months. Awesome. So let's do this. This is now going to be completely weird. Fetch. So fetching will pull the information about the remote branch. Now there's only main up on remote. I will delete these branches locally. Right, so I do not have any mess locally. I will check out main, and then I can delete that branch. And now I have a cleaner version. Okay, and delete master. So I do not have an offensive branch lying out there. Okay. We are at a clean point in the software. Well, that feels like a day's work. Okay. Okay. So where do I want to start? I want to start with tickets because that I've already got components in there. We can now start to add the refinements to that. Once we hit the assigner ticket, we have to switch tack and move to what it is to register an extra user in the system. Then we want to register the user and do the login piece for them, right? So when there's another user, I can track back to this one and figure out what I need to do, right? And again, there's an extra piece here. There's as a user, I should be able to see tickets assigned to me. Right, that's an extra piece of that, right? So I'm going to evolve these, right? As a user, it works now. It won't work in the long term because there'll be different types of user, right? There'll be developers, there'll be product managers, there'll be QA, there'll be support members, there'll be all sorts of different people, and the specificity will make the difference in how we understand these stories, right? So as a user works right now because there is no concept of anything else. But I should continue to review these, make sure that I'm truthful about that, how they are. So we're going to start on this ticket, right? So now I get to start my branch path, my branching strategies, right? And again, this is something that you should work out and make sure that you are comfortable with how it's going to work, right? The way I was doing the branches before is not feasible for long-term development and for CI/CD. it's a really bad design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new branch, and it's going to relate to the story, right? So in this case, I'm going to pick up this one. So let's create a board, right? New settings, sprint one. First set of actual work. We're going to call this sprint. No, we're going to be nicer than that. Inaugural, and you realize you're not quite as good at spelling as you thought you were. Inaugural. Yeah. Let's be a little bit more pretentious about it, right? Inaugural sprint. Okay. I'm not going to worry too much about the design of these, right? It's open, it's in progress, it's done. I am not trying to create the process I want to end up with in this board. I'm trying to use this board to get me to the point where my software takes over and does this for me, right? So at that point, I start practicing those things. And yeah. So I have the inaugural sprint. And now let's move this to the inaugural sprint. Copper Beardy, thank you very much for joining today. Hopefully you've got something from all this. It's been good to have you here. Good to see you again. Take care. Cook some more delicious food. Okay, so we've put a story in our inaugural sprint. Let's decide quickly what else is going to go into the inaugural sprint, right? So list of support tickets. Yep, that can go in there. That can go into the inaugural sprint. And I want to be a little bit more ambitious. Register a user, because once we get past the list of tickets, we end up with needing the user piece. So let's do that part, right? And there we go. We'll call that good for now, right? Actually, not a bad board system, if I'm honest. So we're going to start with this in progress, right? Now, space does have the concept of of having the space does have source control, right? I can do code reviews in here. I can do all sorts in here, right? It also has a repository, right? And it should be synchronized. So this is actually the real repository. It's just synchronized from Git into space as well. So I can actually do stuff in here with it, right? I can actually create deployments and packages all from within here because it is a synchronized copy of the repository. Mr. Horn, good morning. How are you doing, sir? So let's begin our inaugural. I like the little graphic. That's nice. So Liquid Sky T6. Right, so how do I want to name this? Let's see how this works. Right, so if we go over to here, I'm going to create, good on your end, nice, a new branch. It's a feature branch, so I'm going to adhere to this. And then I'm going to T6, enter support ticket. If you do it that way, what happens is when GitHub sees it and you do PR in GitHub, it will save the PR as that name. If you do this, GitHub will create a ticket that says T6 space enter support ticket, all one word, all separate words. So that styling matters very much to how you use the string. So I think the ticket number and then a brief description of what it is, right? And there we go. We're already checked out. Okay. So I'm going to have some challenges here in terms of SQL Server because my databases are gone. So I'm going to have to recreate them. I was testing last night with my friend to figure out the migration scripts and generally got them working. Not perfect, but there's some tweaks need to be made to how I execute the scripts. But other than that, it should work fine. I pretty much don't need to use Dapper. I can just execute, if I can execute a script through SQL data clients. Okay, so let's go back over here. Scripts, tenant management. So this is my tenant management database stuff, right? So I need to create my database. New database. LS tenant management. Refresh that. That's that. Then we need to take the scripts. There was actually a way of doing this in DataGrip. It's a little cleaner. If I do not that one. SQL scripts. Run SQL script. No. There's actually a runner of some form. I thought. But take this here. Run that there. Here we go. Yeah. So this will nice. Script files. Run. Yep, that ran. PBO. Tables. There's my tables. Oh, that reminded me of my migration script process. I hand roll my own to learn using a migrations table with scripts. It rolls forward, but it keeps track of the scripts that were already run. It was a fun learning experience and a lot less code than I thought it would be. Nice. Yeah, migration stuff is still something I want to address because that's going to become a challenge at some point, right? I'm going to develop this software far enough that I'm going to produce a version that's going to sit there and be testable, and then I'm going to do extra work, and I'm going to need to figure out that whole process of, okay, now how do I deal with changes? For the Saga stuff, I don't want to create a migrations table. That's the problem. So there's a challenge there is, okay, what if I change the schema? What is the right way of dealing with a schema change on something that you've delivered as a NuGet package? Or is it acceptable to say, hey, there's some changes in here. You need to run this script to migrate your existing schemas to this new format. But always, you have to support that forward progress, right? So Cosmos DB or spell me, it's all JSON up and down, so we don't do migrations, we just slap a data extension attribute on the model. Nice. Default slides JSON. That's gonna be my thing for now. Okay. In the right places. Okay, so the cluster name, save that. So I'm gonna have to set users up again. I'm gonna have to do all that sort of fun stuff. Ugh. Working with Salt right now. Oh yeah, I can imagine you are very appreciative of JSON now. You also learn that ASP.NET does not allocate memory if you don't touch the object in code. What? How was he? I'm not quite sure I follow there. If you don't use it in code. ls tenant teams. Like a controller is a scope service. From request start to finish, it will clean up the memory instantly after request. Oh, okay. Nice. Okay, let's add Teams. Teams isn't actually necessary. I'm just making sure that I have it dealt with, so that I don't have to have it start there and not. Or I go to use it and realize that it's broken. All right, Teams is a pretty much empty piece right now. It's way after users. Okay, so we have a branch, we have a database, we need the tickets piece set up. So let me see if I want to see something. If I do a push of this branch, so it is in the remote. Let's see if there's any features in space that actually track that. Yeah, we're not even got onto that discussion yet of, okay, integrations. Feature T6 enter support ticket. So how quick does that actually get to space? That just sounds funny. That synchronizes pretty quick. If I go to here, manage fields. I thought I saw somewhere I could assign. So the free version allows me to add one custom field, so that's not, and do time tracking, etc. So there's all sorts of virtual features it can do. I thought I saw somewhere that I could assign code changes. There we go. Link code changes. Not quite what you'd want. I don't want to link an individual commit. More digging into source generators. Their recommend route to develop source generators is to use unit testing, and you're implementing them to use VS proper, since VS has its own internal cache that is better invalidated on changes. It's so annoying you find a long thread in GitHub from back when they released, and it's still open to make the process better. Yeah, it's not perfect. I also hit an issue, and I had to completely eradicate them, the generated ones yesterday, to move forward, because Mediator would not pick them up at all, and it did do the first time. It just stopped doing it. So, no worries. Appreciate it. It's good learning stuff, new stuff, right? So anyway, you can't attach a branch, is what I thought you could do, but you can't do that. This bothers me. Spent time. That's again a reporting metric, right? That's useful if you care about how much time someone spent, I suppose, but it's also a tracking of people. And I think what matters most is the work's done in a time frame you expect. You have to literally kill all .NET processes to realize the analyzer folder lock to start updating. Ooh. Release. I realized that, but yeah. To release the analyzer folder lock to start updating. I mean, Rider has reboot Roslyn source generators. They've actually made a menu item out of it, so I don't think it works very well, but yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I'm going to come back on that eventually. The source generation stuff was a worthwhile diversion as such. So I will come back around on that eventually. Okay, so let's see if we can get a few more pieces done here. So work item consumers, because obviously I'm going to need to generate a tenant, because now I've wiped everything out again. This sort of stuff is stuff that I consider you have to. You should go through this, and as you're doing this stuff, right, as you're doing this configuration stuff, start asking yourself, how do I automate this? What do I do to make sure this is prepared? Do I need to make sure this is prepared, right? So from a development environment, this is not fun, right? I have to go through this every time. So how do I automate these pieces? Doing that asking those questions and trying to come up with a way of doing it will speed up your development process. It may slow it down a bit, and I'm not going to do that part on stream necessarily. I'll think about it as I go. But if I have to wipe out the system to verify that I'm working from a good basis, then it's going to be more and more. Does Pulumi have an extension, I wonder? Maybe that's a stream. Maybe we look at Pulumi. Maybe I can do something, but or some sort of tooling to kind of script this out. But I suppose that's exactly why those tools exist, right? It's that need to just say, hey, create a system and tear it down and create it again and tear it down again, right? Because recreatability, testability, etc. It's something I'm about to come up against in my day stuff. Is I need to be able to test database updates, but I need to continually test the performance of the database updates. But I have no way of recreating the database every time. So I'm going to have to run the changes, then completely restore the database, which could take half a day. So, yeah. So we need Liquid Sky admin. Liquid Sky admin. Admin. Password is password. And this is an administrative user at full admin level, right? Because this user is used to, and if I was using an enterprise version of Couchbase, I could make more granular permissions to make sure that this Liquid Sky admin isn't global. Yeah, I can do whatever I want, right? And I think I don't need that anymore. But yeah, so that's that admin, and then the user in here needs Liquid Sky Dev, right? So Liquid Sky Dev, security, add user, Liquid Sky Dev, developer. That's that, and that just needs access to work items, right? That way, this user can create scopes and stuff, but cannot create collections. So I'm just trying to start as I mean to go on and start to think about the access of different levels, right? The application, the API layer would never have admin access to the database. Is the idea, right? The consumer's piece is behind the scenes, so that has the ability to create everything. Okay, so with that done, I should have a functional Couchbase system. I should have a database system, and I need to go and create the right users in the database. Right, I need to create LST admin, and because it's in this instance, I'm not going to be very good because this is more of a pain than it should be, right? Do I have the scripts for this? Did I create the scripts for this? In it. I did. Phew. Past me wasn't that dopey. Okay. So I'm a DB owner, right? It's not ideal, but SQL Server privileges, as even going through this with someone who is very experienced with SQL Server, they've changed this. They've tried to refine this. They've made this messier. Trying to tune the permissions on a SQL Server is an art form unto itself. So I'm not going to try and pretend that I know better there. Okay. I need to start, by the way. I do need to start promoting more. Hey, if you're watching the video, especially on YouTube, add comments if you want to. If you have something you want to ask, comments are a great place to do it. Do like the video. That does help with getting more people to be able to see the video. And if you're not subscribed, that's going to take a while to get used to. I do not like the self-sales part of content production. But yeah, subscribe, like, and comment is the thing to say on YouTube, right? On Twitch. ask questions if you want. You know, you should record it and play it every 15 minutes as an ad break. I don't know. It just self promotion doesn't feel natural for me. Right? I like doing this stuff. But it also, if I'm going to keep doing it, then having people coming in and watching the videos and interacting will help um, generate more energy and you know hopefully um, gather more opinions as I go, because that's kind of what I want to do, right? I want to make sure that I'm not just living in my bubble and doing it my way all the time, right? I want to be challenged, and yeah, I feel like that too. I need to get started. I have a long doc with everything I should be doing, just too lazy right now to do it. Yeah, I'll be honest. I joined um Satoli's stream, I think just randomly the other week, and Deflux was in there. Um, and then the energy was there, and it was just a great place to hang out, and it kind of motivated me again to get back into this, and my energy for software development just reignited a little bit. And then I realized that if I could stream it, I could focus more, and it kind of reawakened that desire to do this stuff, and yeah, it's and I've obviously got this window of opportunity, right? I've got this 2 hours at the beginning of the day. The dogs have been extremely good every day so far. Um, I've cursed myself now. Still got another day of the week, but they've been really good and giving me this 2 hours, this 2 hour window. So it's working pretty well. Um, and also this time frame allows people in Europe to see the stream a bit more. Um, it's not very good for the US, but I feel that Europeans generally watch dev streams more than US based people. But anyway, let's go and create a tenant first. Let's make sure we can still do that. So I'm gonna have to go over here, log in. User management, users. We can delete these now because these are long since gone. Did that just put that back? Yeah, okay. Delete the users. Let's go here. Tenant management. Okay, project number. So now we're starting to T6, new tenant. So we'll go with Frank Jones. Does it register? Invalid object name sagas. Yep, that would be the problem. Right, I haven't got those pieces there yet. That is because I do not have the sagas, and that is because I decided to put it in there. Script. Generate GDL to clipboard. We're just going to create it in here for now. What? That's not really DDL to clipboard then, is it? SQL script. SQL generator. Okay. Problem is we've now created data that we can't clean up. So again, that reversal, what does that look like, right? So one of the things that I often, people often do is something like that happens, right? What is the right thing to do here, right? Should I put in large steps to unwind that event? Can that really happen? If the software is working as intended and I'm not missing anything, it shouldn't happen, right? So for it to happen means a mistake on my part, and that is that sagas weren't there, right? So I'm not going to panic about that piece right this second. Legitimate rollback of something didn't happen in the system that should have happened. Now we need to go and change things. That's a different thing. Okay, so that also fails. So I wiped out the systems of the Docker containers because I was testing stuff. Thank you for the alert, Deflux. Appreciate it. So that's just a side effect. Go to Kafka here, topics, create topic. Did not see the name. Consumers, app settings, liquid sky, tenant created. Let's create a topic. Here you go. Number of partitions 1. I do not need any sort of crazy scaling on this. Okay, so there we go. So now our topic exists for the tenant, so the consumer can start up. If you're using Kafka, you should never let the system create the topic, because when you're publishing, it will create the topic. But you should never let that happen. You should always make sure you create your topics beforehand, because you can configure them. If you just let the system create it, it's going to create one replication factor, and that's not going to work the way you want it to work. So always create your topics before you start your system. Let's see if this registers now. There we go. We have a registration. Okay, so we should have a user over in here, Frank Jones. We should have a tenant appear in our bucket. We do not. Awesome. What went wrong? This handler should have fired, right? Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Hardek. No. That one. There we go. Okay. So connect. Data catalog. Tenant created. Data browser. Tenant created. No data found. It did not produce the event. Oh, big. If only I hadn't gone through days worth of work to prevent that from happening if I didn't confirm the user. Like, oh look, it's like I kind of planned this. Verify. Oh dear. I know what I'm doing, honest. I do. Any day now I'll be an expert. I did auth 0 on it. Huh. Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe I always did. Okay. GUID should contain 32 digits. We tested this yesterday. That's a GUID. Tenant management, endpoints, verify, post. Ah, it's not stripping the right thing. Did it change what it did? Did that now attach auth 0 and yesterday it attached auth? Oh, we might have to be a little smarter about that. That might have to be a bug. So that, if that's the case where it can sometimes put auth and sometimes put auth 0, then obviously my technique for stripping it, which is a very simple replace, is not correct, and I should use some other pattern to say, hey, go find anything up to the pipe and replace that and everything after it is the GUID, because I control that, by the way. That is set by me when I register the user. I set that ID to be that. It attaches the auth 0, but I set the user ID, and that's what pulls. So that number 8B23 should be the number of that user here, right? So it is a coordinating, or again, an orchestrating identifier. Okay, so let's try that again. That looks slightly healthier. We should now have a tenant created. There's our tenant. There's our collections. And there's our tenant information. Okay, so the system is not broken. The system is working as intended. Awesome. Let's move forward. So from now on, I am going to try and be very strict about my unit testing practices, right? So even though I've done some of this work already to prove this ticket piece, I'm now going to write unit tests for these pieces. So that should be my guiding principle for writing the software going forward, right? I should not be, yeah, that kind of works, right? I should be treating it a little bit more respectfully. So as a product owner, I should be able to enter a ticket for a support issue. As a product owner, I need to be able to capture a ticket to record a support issue. And that's often repeated. The issue will have a customer name, a description of the issue, and an expected review date. Okay, so let's go in here. We'll have customer name, a description of the issue, and expected review date. So let's just pause on this a little second and just kind of discuss, right? As a developer, sat down with the PMs, right, or the PM to discuss this story. What sort of questions am I going to ask, right? What sort of questions should I ask, right? Okay, customer name. Is there a limit? Like, is it first name, last name? Should I have a title? Is there any contact details? The description of the issue, again, is there any limit on the number of characters? Can I paste content in there? Should we protect it in any way? Now, some of those span over into the technical components, right? Some of those are, okay, maybe that's a little bit more technical. For right now, I just want to be able to write text in there and retrieve it back. And an expected review date, right? Should it have a time? Or is it just a date? You know, what other questions could I ask, right? So here, what I want to have happen is the PM should make sure that they clarify on the story, right? Because again, a conversation can be lost, a conversation can be forgotten, a conversation can be misremembered, right? So you need to make sure, for everyone's sake, not just it's not just a cover your backside, right? You need to make sure that everybody is clear about what is the expectation. Because if I go on vacation tomorrow and another developer picks up this story, they have the same questions. So I've wasted the time because they have to go to the PM. Now the PM misremembers the conversation and repeats a different requirement. Who's right? Where is this captured? What is this doing, right? So that you want to make sure that these stories are clarified, and they shouldn't have technical details on them. They shouldn't be, oh, we need to store this in this table, this in this table. We need to have a varchar, 32 for this, right? But we do need to make sure that we are clear about what is expected of the system, because when we review this story later, if there's holes in it, right, it's okay if we're rapidly developing, right? If we're developing, hey, I need this, I need this, I need this. We're developing unit tests, we're developing code that is single responsibility. We are trying to hold good to some principles. It means that we can change things. It's not the end of the world if they later come along and say, actually, I need that to have a contact card associated with it. Okay, let's create the story to keep track of customers, and let's keep, however we want to do it, right? there's all manner of different approaches here. There's all manner of different things that you'd be more comfortable with. But as a developer, if you take this and walk away with it and implement it the way you think it should be implemented, chances of you having something wrong in there, like if I say a customer name, oh well, a customer name always has a title, a first name and last name, and I deliver that, and the PM says, I just wanted a name, right? But a customer always has a title, first name, last name. Well, what if they only go by one name? What if they don't want to have it recorded? What if it's a company name? Right? You made an assumption, and that's unhealthy because now there's churn. Right? Because now that story's been written, the code's been written, tests have been written, lots of time spent to come back and then find you're wrong. Now you got to redo it. So it's worth spending the time in grooming to identify what it is someone actually needs. So a customer name um, could be a person or a company. Free text, maximum 100 characters, right? Free text, should it be HTML encoded, etc. That's kind of a technical piece because obviously we've got to display what's there. If we just take it as it is, the browser would interpret a link in there rather than the actual software doing anything. So for now, through testing, and again, right now this is all API based, so it doesn't really matter. When I develop the UI, that might identify some bugs, but we'll have actually developed all the features. So how we store this is not really critical to the path right now. I can go with this, right? Maximum, 1,000 characters or 500 characters. This doesn't really matter, except we don't want to have, it's a description of the issue, right? So let's say maximum 500 characters. It shouldn't go beyond that because everything else should be, after. There's more pieces to this than I'm providing, right? So in this discussion, we're like, oh well, what happens about the free text, right? Description. Oh well, when we add the notes to it, notes. We haven't talked about notes yet. Oh, yeah, I need to be able to add notes to a ticket. Yeah, that would have been good to know, right? So let's go back and make sure we track that we should be able to add notes to a ticket, right? So we go back to the root ticket, which is want to track support tickets, and let's add another one as a product. As a user, I should be able to attach notes to a ticket. Create an issue out of that, right? We've identified a requirement. We should capture the requirement. That is not even to be discussed. That is a thing they expect. So let's make sure we capture that before we lose track of that, right? Okay, let's see if we can finish some of this up before we go too far forward. And again, if anyone's watching, if anyone has any questions, any thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, please feel free to share. You don't have to have been doing this for, any length of time to have an opinion on this sort of stuff. This is one of the hardest pieces of software development is preparing for software development. And as always, I'm going to paste the link in the chat for the Discord. If you want to discuss this off stream, if you want to get in touch and go through any of this, feel free. I'm always open for discussing this, and especially on the stream, it's healthy for other developers and other professionals to see, how other people do it, right? Right or wrong, good or bad, yeah. Okay, so I created an endpoint already, right? And I can post to the endpoint, right? I can add a new support ticket. Did I create any tests? No. I did not create tests. So that's where we're going to start. And I'm going to obviously that exists. I can't ignore that it exists. I can't ignore the code. There's no point ignoring the code. But right now I'm going to write this test as if that didn't exist, and um, I am going to um, I'm going to apply what I expect now, not what I expected then. Good morning, Rockstone. How are you doing? How are you doing? One second, I am. I'm just trying to see if I can sort out some breakfast because I silly neglected to actually order. Okay. So I'm gonna write these tests in this format, right? So concerning support tickets, right? When ticket is added, I don't have many events to work off right now. I don't have many conflicts here, right? I don't know of anything else I need to do. I just need to add a ticket, right? Um, there's no validation. It's a pretty simple thing. So CRUD is oftentimes not the easiest or most glamorous piece to do. But having this structure in here now will at least allow me to provide um, um, a foundation for any future tests necessary. Because it's highly unlikely this is going to go forward and not require any validation. And it is CRUD, right? It is, in this case, it's the C, right? I'm just creating a thing in a database, right? But if the user doesn't exist, if something doesn't exist, right, this process being in here will at least like direct me towards that. So concerning support tickets, when the ticket is added, right, ticket is stored, it's kind of bland, right? So ticket has review date, and the style of my testing means that this is the way that my assertions are going to be. Ticket has added date. Ticket has customer name. Ticket has description, right? It's pretty dumb testing. It's not really um, difficult, but it works, right? It helps to make me think about what it is I'm about to do, what I'm doing, right? So in this case, I have a subject already. Private, um, add new ticket. What is that? The add new support ticket, right? So again, I'm using that language. I'm calling it a support ticket, right? Is that the right thing? Yes. In this instance, it is exactly what I want. This is a support ticket. So this is suggesting SUT, which is system under test. I kind of prefer that's the subject of my test or subject of test, whatever. Right. So now I'm going to reference the project. Right. Can I add a global usings here? Will that allow me to do that? Global. Yeah, that was. Global usings in unit tests, I definitely agree with because the amount of times you're going to just repeat the same things, it's just, yeah. Attributes, I see attributes everywhere now. Well, you went down the path of reflection and yeah, attributes are the easiest signals. And that's exactly how this works. It looks for the attribute and runs that code. So again, I follow a pattern here. So I do public when ticket is added. I don't do it that way. I do arrange, and then I do act. And that's just my way of organizing that. And I put these methods down here. Private void arrange, private void act, right? And that's where my uh, construction of my subject goes. So what does that need? Well, add new support ticket doesn't need anything because I've just mistakenly forgot how my own code was, right? What I'm actually after here is the handler piece of this, right? That's the piece. Because I nest everything under the class, I can create a new instance of this, right? I don't think there's any way in preventing me from creating a new instance. It just won't do anything, right? So what I actually want here is the dot handler component of that ticket, right? That workflow. And this has a dependency of a work item context. Now, I'm not going to add in Couchbase into here, obviously. So I'm going to use a different library. I need a work item context, and that's my context. I'm going to import that missing reference. And then here I'm going to do context equals substitute for work item context. And that is a substitute, which I am, the more I use it, the more I'm really enjoying using it. And let's be explicit here. This is a work item context. Context is, considering the meaning of the word context, it is an overloaded term in software, right? Right. Context, the part of a text or statement that surrounds a particular word or passage, the circumstances in which an event occurs, a setting, and that's kind of how we're using it, right? The circumstances in which an event occurs, a setting, right? But we often have context. But what context are you talking about in a workflow that has multiple contexts? So let's be explicit, right? So here, what am I actually testing? I'm subject that handle, right? New add new support ticket dot command. In reality, what I do have is I have add new support ticket dot send. Again, I'm still trying to think about this design, but that's just to prevent that new. And this is going to be ticket title. Oh, look, I've got a difference. That's not what I want. I want different things now, right? So I'm not going to change them yet. Private const customer name equals, yeah, no. So one piece of advice I have when you're writing unit tests is don't use silly data. Don't make data up. Don't go through that effort, right? Just write something that is clearly what it is intended to be. So when you see the actual data, oh, it's description. That's what that field is. So if you've copied it into a wrong variable and it says customer name, right, you're fine. But sometimes it can get confusing if it's anything else. Okay, I'm going to wait for that ad to finish before I just realized what time it was. Okay. So yeah, let's finish out that ad. Okay, so we need that, we need that. So ticket as review date, private const, I don't think I can do that. Date time, review date equals DT, date time, UTC now. Yeah, it doesn't like that. Nope. ad breaks over. Welcome back for those that do not have Twitch Turbo or are subscribed or have blocks. So let's kind of briefly say what I'm going to do here, right? Because I'm kind of out of time. We're going to raid over to someone shortly. So what I need to do here is I need to handle this message, right? So the challenge here is I don't have titles, so I want customer name, description is still there, and I want the review date, right? Which is not what I initially passed in, right? Cancellation token done. Dot get awaiter. Dot get result, right? Because I need that to be synchronous right now, right? We're then going to get back the work item context of some form, right? So the challenge here is with this style, and substitute doesn't fit very well because in substitute I'm going to say work item context dot received, right? Dot add, has review date. That's roughly what I'm going to be doing, right? But now I can't make a passing test, right? I can't make a failing test. I can't make a passing test either because the code won't compile. So I need to make it compile, right? So I need to go in here and I still need to identify. That's a good point. Date, time, review date. And I need review date on the command. And I need date, time, review date here on the command. And here, right, what do I do with the ticket? I'm going to have to correct this to make it work. I'm going to have to do some juggling. Ultimately, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, work item context. I can actually do a capture of the variable. I did it in another test the other day. So I can say when, and I can put the arguments in there, and I can actually do a callback of some form. Here you go. And here I can capture that information. So I will capture the result, and what I'll end up with is private ticket result, right? So my tests will look like this. Result dot review date dot do I want to use fluent? Assert dot equals fluent probably. The problem I have with fluent validation is I don't like using the word should. And if I use the word should because I'm using fluent validation, then I'm kind of cheating, right? So I might avoid it for now, right? Because basically what I want to say is, yeah, the review date is that. And if it's not that, it's an error, right? Not should. I don't want to ever say it should, right? That's what it is, right? If this test is green, that's what it is. If it's red, that's not what it was. So it's not valid. So it's not should be. It is or it isn't, right? I know the use of the word should does permit that, but it's kind of I prefer the distinction and holding to that sort of discipline. So I'm going to make this test pass. I can't stream any longer, unfortunately, because I do have to get ready for work. I will return tomorrow with some testing around this and further stories. If you are interested in following along, please, drop a follow. Come back tomorrow. I'm in a call, but do it. Yep. So yeah, let's go and raid out. There is someone I'm going to raid, who is developing a game which looks very nice. I think we had this debate before. I only read it when it fails, so it should make sense. Yeah. So we can always go into that again. I'll get some unit tests written. I'll get some more progress made, and we'll reconvene tomorrow. I'm considering doing some bot dev, but I might not do tomorrow. I might make it next week. So where is it? There you go. So we're going to raid over to Alistair. They're developing a game in Godot. It looks very nice. So yeah, if you're in here and you want to chat, please say hello. thank you very much for your time, all. Take care. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you soon. Have a good one, all.